Hi, my name is Amanda Mungal and I'm the founder of It's Your Time. Today we're having a conversation with my good friend Erika Weissenborn, the founder of Fresh in Your Fridge. I've known Erika for a number of years now, from when she was working as a sole practitioner and a nutritionist, providing home-cooked meals for some of her friends and working as a clinician, to today when she's a business owner with a team of nutritionists out in the community cooking for people, making sure that all of Vancouver is eating healthy. Erika gives us some great tips in this interview, and I know that because we've already had our conversation all about changing your mindset and getting your business to that next level and what it means to be a business owner with a team versus being a sole practitioner. So I encourage you to watch this interview. Welcome, Erika.
Thank you.
This is our very first podcast, and so I think we both have space to have the wiggles and nerves.
Yeah, totally. I hope we do it right.
Yeah, me too, me too. So thank you so much for coming in today. I wanted to talk to you and have a conversation with you about growing our business and getting to the next level and what that looked like for you. So could you start by sharing a little bit about what you do?
For sure. Thanks for having me, by the way. It's an honor to be your first guest. I have a company called Fresh in Your Fridge, and we do basically personal chef type services. So we go into people's homes versus a lot of the delivery or meal kit type services that are out in Vancouver now. Everyone on the team is a nutritionist, so we really focus on therapeutic diets, people who have sensitivities or allergies, or people who just want that extra touch, and truly home-cooked meals. So yeah, that's the business I have. We've got 15 wonderful nutritionists. So in the past couple years, I've stepped out of the role of cooking so much and more into the role of figuring out how to run it all.
Awesome. Yeah, so when I was on I stalked you on LinkedIn a little bit.
Cool.
And so when I was on your LinkedIn page, because I know from conversations that you made, obviously you've made that transition from being nutritionist to being business owner.
Yeah.
And so I didn't realize that, because you had Erika Weissenborn Nutrition, I think, before.
Yes.
That, possibly still, I didn't realize that the shift to actually Fresh in Your Fridge was in 2016, I think or maybe earlier,
there was
on your
there
LinkedIn.
Was some overlap.
Yeah, probably. But
yeah.
I'd love to hear a little bit about that shift and like what the difference is between when you were operating as Erika Weissenborn Nutrition versus Fresh in Your Fridge.
Yeah, well, the biggest part is having a team versus it just being myself. And yeah, after finishing nutrition school, so I'm a trained nutritionist, started a practice. I knew I always wanted to be an entrepreneur or a business owner. So in my head, what that looked like was having my own practice and seeing clients that way. As I got into actually building that, this concept of Fresh in Your Fridge, I always say this, like, it wasn't my idea. It's just like it kept happening. Knocking on my door. It kept happening.
Yeah.
So it started off with a friend asking for me to do this type of thing for them, and as you know, starting off a business, it was like, sure, I'll make extra cash that way. And then they ended up telling their friends about it, and it just kind of grew from there. So that was probably about 5 years ago when that was kind of budding. And what was your question? The switch.
It's interesting because you've actually also answered my next question, which was the shift organic.
Right, yeah,
so
the shift was
the difference.
Very organic, and I actually had a lot of resistance to it. I was like, this isn't what I'm doing. I want to do more of this clinical practice.
Interesting.
But this idea, it was just, I guess that's how business works. It's like, this is a need that needs to be fulfilled, and I was the person to do that. And so that shift of, it just being me to having a team is something I'm still trying to figure out, but it's
we
wonderful.
All?
Yeah.
What we regularly work with our clients and talk about the importance of, you can only go so big if it's just you.
Yes.
Right? So if you want to scale your business, you don't have to shoot for $1 million, but if you want to scale your business beyond just making enough money to pay your immediate bills, then you're going to have to build a team, which can be awesome and tricky.
Yeah, and I guess because we're talking from a business perspective as well, it was creating something that was an ongoing service versus something like if you go see a nutritionist, yeah, you might work with them ongoing, but typically you'll go see them for 3 or 4 sessions, and then, you know,
if you're making my food, I'm seeing you every week.
Yeah, so we've created something like we've had clients who've been with us. So Fresh in Your Fridge has been in operation for 4.5 years, and we've had clients who have been with us for 4.5 years.
That's awesome.
So that's good.
That's really awesome.
It's a more valuable client from that perspective.
Yeah. So I guess my next question was kind of, as you made the transition from being your practitioner space to having your business, was there any client pushback on anything? It sounds like you almost had a little bit of yourself pushback as well.
Yeah, it was more, so actually I didn't let go of being a nutritionist until, I guess, it's March, almost a year ago. And that was my transition out of BNI as well at that point.
Interesting.
Because I was defining myself by that role and still being able to help people. I think also part of being an entrepreneur or business owner is I was still trying to be like Jill of all trades, you know. It was like, okay, Fresh in Your Fridge is doing well, but I still need to like make money another way, and I still need to provide every possible service that I can to make this a go.
Right.
And instead I realized, I was like, oh no, let everything else go, focus on one thing. And that's okay. Like, it created a lot more simplicity and balance in my life. But I was trying to do both for I guess 4 years.
That's a lot of the conversations I've just been having in my life lately about that. And I think it partly comes from being a helper personality.
Yeah.
It comes from being like a driven person. And I think there's also some fear, like because if I'm going to let go of my nutritionist clients, or for me, when there was a point when I made the decision to stop doing client work myself, and then it's like, well,
they're attached to you.
They're attached to me, right?
Yeah.
So they're attached to me. So then there's that transition with my clients, but then also like, what's that going to mean to my pocketbook, or what's that going to, there's like all those things that you've got to unpack.
But then you have so much freedom.
Exactly.
When you do end up letting it go.
It's so rewarding.
Room to grow, right?
Absolutely. And now I can spend, like for me, I can spend my time on doing high value support to our clients when I choose to.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But it just gives you that room to then really come to the table in a relaxed fashion and sort of see things in a different way with your clients. But what was there a key piece or issue that made it, that either helped you make that decision or was holding you back from making that decision?
I went last year around this time. I went through my first burnout.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was again part of leaving BNI, but I realized like my efforts and just like my mental space was so divided, and I felt very scattered and just stretched thin. So sometimes you just get pushed into it.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably the biggest deciding factor, and realizing I really love the business side of things. I really love managing and running Fresh in Your Fridge, and looking sort of upstream, what do I want my life to look like 3, 4, 5 years down the road?
Just so exciting.
Totally. It just made sense, and it was more of an emotional, I felt stuck emotionally because it was like I wanted to do both. I wanted to help everyone, and also, you probably know this from your business, it was like I still had that sort of like, oh my gosh, clients are coming in, like I need to take everything, versus saying this is what we do, like we can't help you. Like it was so scary to let go of helping everyone. And taking on any business that I could.
I still struggle with that.
Yeah, me too.
Right? I still struggle with that,
what do you want? Sure, I can do it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I find though that what happens is 100% of the time, one of two things will happen. Either we will, and it's usually when we're taking a client on that's not quite ready to work for us or work with us, like maybe they're too small.
Yeah.
And so either we do a whole bunch of work and end up doing it for free and do a really great job, or we stick to their budget and then we're not doing a great job because there's not enough budget to do the work that they really want.
Right.
And both scenarios aren't great, right? And that at the end of the day comes back to me because I'm the one that has to say no.
Yeah.
And it's still something I'm working on.
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest challenges of having, well, not everyone has a service-based business. We both have service-based businesses, is like the balance between being kind of picky with your clients, but still helping lots of people and not turning people away. But yeah, it's like, it matters so much who you end up working with.
100%. One of the things I've done is try to build up my network of other service providers that do similar things, but maybe not quite to the scale that we do, so that I can confidently refer to somebody else. It helps me get over that hump of saying no to somebody, to say, oh, well, but you will be in good hands with this person, and when you're ready for us, you can come to us, right?
That's good.
Makes me feel a little bit better about it. So if you had to give a piece of advice now that you're old and wise with your business, well, not old, but no,
not wise yet.
If you had to give a piece of advice to your first year starting your business self, what would it be?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question because I knew you were going to ask it. And there's so many different things. We talked a little bit before filming about, the finance aspect, which is, I think one of the things would have been paying myself versus like dumping absolutely everything back into the business. But at the time I could do that, and it ended up working out. But I think the biggest piece of advice would be having more of a focus and kind of narrowing in and really trusting, like, just provide one service, figure out who, that idea of like your niche client. I was so resistant to that because I was like, wanted to help everyone, wanted to do all of the things. And I think what happened as a result of that was a lot of people didn't understand what we did, and it wasn't really clear.
Muddied
and then
the communication.
I ended up, being very stretched thin and sort of brain dead after a couple of years of doing that. At the same time, I learned from that experience and have grown from it. But I think that would be my biggest piece of advice, is like, don't be afraid to just like get really narrow on what I do and how we help people.
It's really interesting because I know when I start, like, our whole business is built on the fact that, we'll kind of do whatever it is that you need to run your business, right?
Right.
And we work with all different industries. Yeah. So when I would hear that advice, it would almost, like, I couldn't even compute because I was like, well, right? And so, and what I've learned, it took me 10 years, is it's not so much, for me, it's not so much the industry or the type of work, it's the type of person.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so for us, it's like, what's the energy and like where the goals and what kind of person is what makes it a really good fit for us.
Right.
So they could have like a really, really tiny business or a really, really huge business. If it's the right type of person, it's the right fit.
Yeah, and that's where like core values come into
100%.
Yeah, that ideal client profile, like it sounds cheesy, but it's true.
I know. So like the work that we did in Entrepreneur Organization Accelerators, to not use an acronym, like around core values and doing all of that work was like super helpful because it helped me. It was like this light bulb moment of like, oh, I'm not being asked to pick an industry or a task, rather a type of person. And then who is that type of person, right? Yeah. So, because I would imagine with you, it's not like pick a type of cuisine. It's pick like, what are those things that make an ideal client?
Yeah, and our clients were so broad in scope at the beginning, and now it's like, pretty much with little variations, it's a very similar type of person, which is nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Has it been 10 years that you've had It's Your Time?
I think we're like in the 10th year.
Wow.
Yes,
cool.
I know. So it's because we're in the 10th year, I keep thinking 10 years, but it's not a full 10 years yet. So
pretty close.
Yes, we'll have to have a party when we hit that anniversary mark.
That's amazing.
So so it's exciting. So if you don't mind, I just want to circle back to something you said earlier.
Yeah.
And about part of the shift and the decision in your business happened last year when you hit your first burnout. And so I hope you won't mind I'm asking, like, as a business owner, how do you deal with that? Like when you hit that wall or when you have your burnout and you've still got your business to run and now you're having to make some pretty critical decisions, what'd you do?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll just share, it was so interesting. Like, you know, I'd heard this term burnout before, and a part of me was like, oh, people are being dramatic, or like, oh, what, are you tired? You know, and I didn't really understand, like, it dramatically affected my mental state and like sleep, and just, there was literally, my capacity was so low, and it's like your body doesn't give you a choice after a time. Like I had to just shut down for a few months, which, as most things are, was a bit of a blessing in disguise. Because it was just like leaning on my team more, as I'm sure you experience. It's, you know, you trust your team, but there's still like, oh, I'm gonna take care of everything, and I'm gonna, you know, I'm doing it better, and to really let everyone step up and take over, you know, the things that I usually do was like, it was so fulfilling. It was really amazing to see.
Awesome.
Yeah, and yeah, like I said, a lot of the changes in business come from problems, right? So seeing how I could remove myself from the day a little bit more, day to day, a little bit more.
It really was a blessing in disguise.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And interestingly, the few months that, you know, I'd kind of really stepped back, our sales were actually the best that they had ever been.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was like,
awesome.
I was like, oh, sweet. It wasn't until about 3 or 4 months later, then I was like, oh, okay, that time
sales
that I was
cycle,
on,
right?
kind of dipped down. One of my business coaches talks about sales and marketing like a slinky. You heard this analogy?
No, okay. Go ahead, yeah.
So you have the slinky and you're doing your marketing and you're pulling the slinky along, and then the sales sort of catch up, right?
Totally.
So if you stop doing marketing, your sales can still continue, and then all of a sudden, oh shoot, it stops. But then you have to start the marketing, the sales don't.
That's a brilliant analogy. That's awesome.
So that was sort of the first few months where I was really had taken a step back. I was like, wow, this is great. Like, and then it wasn't until a little bit later that I saw that catch up. But you know,
the nice thing is that while you were in the core of that not feeling great, you could feel good seeing the money still coming. So it lets you kind of relax in that moment.
And then once I was kind of back into that hustle mode a little bit, I was like, okay, time to hustle.
Time to hustle, exactly. Yeah, you know, and I guess the benefit, because you had built a team, is that you could do that.
Yes.
It's quite heartbreaking when we have clients who haven't built a team and then go through that space, because then it's like just income stops. Right? And they're in a really bad place.
Yeah, part of the value of having, not being just like a one-on-one sole proprietor, but having a team is that you could do that. Yes. Yeah. And that will happen again at different points in my life. I'm sure.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
There's no maternity leave when
I am aware of that. I have 2 very independent boys because they grew up on my office floor. So
as I did in my mom's.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, so I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you have a focus word or sort of a goal for this year?
Yeah, I think, this is sort of reiterated from what I said before, but like having like a little bit of a narrower focus and really just dialing in on the services that we provide and not trying to keep everyone happy. And there's also, I think, again, sort of spouted from this burnout has just been peace.
Oh, lovely.
So peace in starting in my own personal life, and I felt like I really spent 5 years like running around like a chicken with my head cut off and trying to do the whole business thing, but also like, you know, keeping fit and having a social life and like doing that whole Vancouver lifestyle. And I've really stopped that. And sleeping a lot more and just like giving myself a lot more time and space and not creating urgency where it isn't necessarily urgent. So yeah, I start with that, I think, for myself, and then that reiterates out into the reverberates out into the business.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This year, I'm going to try and seek more balance, which I know is a dirty word. We're supposed to say we have flow.
Right.
But I feel that that whole concept of there is no balance, instead we have to flow, gives those of us that are driven an excuse to have no balance, right? Because I'm just going to keep flowing and flowing and flowing.
Yeah.
So this year I want to just try and be a little bit more, maybe peace is a better word than balance.
Maybe, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A bit more self-care, a little bit less working massive hours and just kind of
time with the family.
Yeah, a bit more intention with
Yeah.
what I'm doing.
Cool.
So,
I like that.
Do you have a favorite book or podcast or a training or something that you would want to share with people?
Well, of course, we know each other through BNI,
Yeah.
which was great. And we've been in Entrepreneurs Organization Accelerator for the past almost 2 years.
That's right.
I
think we started
on
the
that
same
patio.
That's right.
In
That's
June
right.
2017, I guess, which
Yeah.
is crazy. But that's been. I felt like I'd learned lots of like sort of the personal development stuff and the small business stuff, but it was like, how do I get to that next step? And of course, that's really helped with making that jump into thinking like, how do I create a larger company, but still keep a lot of the beauty of having a small company,
Totally.
right? And then I feel like it's a bit of not a cliche answer for a book, but I probably read it 2.5 or 3 years ago, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by
nice.
Stephen Covey. And it just like, I don't know, it really stuck with me, like how to fully have integrity in your business, how to handle things with like full responsibility, and be the most caring person that I can be in business.
I have not read that book. I will have to add it to my list.
It's really good. It's a bit of a meaty read. Like it took me a while to get through. And then of course I always go back to E-Myth as well.
Nice.
Just giving me that mindset of like, how do I create more of this smooth running cycle and system without me necessarily being the bottleneck for everything? So
Yes, the cork in the bottle.
yes, always.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I don't have any other questions unless you.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I think I can look up to you a lot. You had 2 kids while you were been running this
Just crazy person, that's
business.
all.
And I think it's just wonderful to connect with women in this space. And so
Well,
thank you
thank
for
you.
doing this.
My pleasure. Thank you.